Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guide into the heart of law practice management, bringing your insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide practical perspectives on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. Before we dive in, I'm thrilled to announce that my latest book, Power Up Your Practice, is out and available on Amazon. It's packed with actionable advice for growing a successful law firm. Be sure to grab your copy today. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive tips and resources. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we love your reviews. They help us reach more attorneys like you who are striving to build the practice of their dreams. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. Welcome back, everyone, to Power Up Your Practice. And I'm really excited to have my guest, Daya Naef. And we met, I don't remember where we met, but we bumped into each other a few times. And she's the success partner. She is a professional coach, attorney, conflict resolution specialist, and loves traveling. I think you're a cat mom. I think you're a retreat artist, keynote speaker. So you've got a lot of like descriptions and titles and labels there. So we'll have to dive in a little bit more. But welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Ruby. I'm so delighted to be here. Yes, I think we were directly introduced at one point, and then we got to know each other in Houston. I think that was like 2 years ago.
So
I know. Everything goes by like a flash. I know. So I have the success partner. We are a consultancy or a law firm fractional advisory. We do a lot of work with the smaller size firms, like 5 principal attorneys, all the way to a one-person office. Do a lot on business development, exit planning, growth, leadership development, partnership development tracks, now doing AI strategy as well, from the strategy perspective as opposed to the technical perspective, and maintaining the ethical use of that and compliance as well. And so what other fun stuff? A lot of fun stuff.
Well, I know that I was wanting to talk about everything but the AI, but actually, now that you said it, just for our listeners, because like we have a lot of partners, managing attorneys, right, and associates. People want to have their own firm. How do you describe the difference between what do you mean by the difference between strategy versus technical? And just for those, because I mean, this is still a new frontier for a lot of attorneys. And I did a webinar this week, and it just reminded me like just how much there's such a broad spectrum. It's a ranging spectrum of people who have the AI knowledge to those who don't. And so I think that might be helpful to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in the C-suite with developing what it's for. So working more from a leadership perspective and a thought leadership perspective on using it as part of the team. So we can certainly use the CIO and the tech people to purchase and install and implement the technical product. But until we know what we want it to do, it's just going to be just another thing that we've expended money on in the firm, and nobody's using it or knowing how to use it or having a comprehensive approach to what you want it to do. For instance, someone cited this the other day, and I asked them where they got the information, and they weren't sure, but they said there's 60 law firm specific AI softwares out there in the world. And so I'm going to find out how many there are. But that sounds probably about right, maybe even be a little bit low. So if I'm running a firm, I don't want to spend my time checking out all these softwares and doing all the demos. I want someone in my C-suite to say, hey, you know what, talk to my people, find out what my people are going to do, or this is my growth strategy, or these are the practice areas we are exploring and expanding into, or doubling down in these certain areas or in these certain geographic regions. And some firms I work with are regional and national even. So like where we're going to do some market studies and find out where the best possible use case is, and then set the goals and set how to break down and make that achievable with the technology and person partnership.
Okay. So that sounds good. I mean, there's just like a lot of change going on. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
some of the programs out, some of the companies are like, here's an idea. And they have like a proof of concept, but then like it's not a full thing. Like, I don't know, I like in theory what you're saying, but I feel like it's all moving so fast. Like, who's the person that's going to go? The team doesn't know what they want it to do because they don't know what it can do, I think sometimes. And then you don't know what it can do because it's still evolving like at the rapid pace. And then you might get teamed up with something, and then there's this other cool thing over here. You have to be careful about the shiny object thing. And then like I don't know. I think too much change is hard for the human system to handle. Like we just moved our case management software this last year, and we're still training and onboarding and seeing what all the bells and whistles and what it can connect to and fun stuff like that. But anyway, I love the this idea, and also just like having a policy, having a culture of like we're embracing it, we're using it as a tool. I think those are important. Talking about the privacy aspect and the confidentiality, which all lawyers are, we're all concerned about and everything. But I think maybe for another day, I'd be super interested. I mean, unless you want to go a little bit more, like how do you actually do that? Like, just so much change that's happening, and then some of those like restrictions of like people not knowing what things can be done, and are you living with and try to incorporate with the existing case management software or existing tech stack, or just reimagining the whole tech altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be for keeping what works and not saying, hey, we're going to scrap everything and go full AI. Number one, that's not possible. And two, that's like way too many changes all at once. It'd be like, okay, we're going to pick up the law firm and move to another state and hire new people and do new practice areas. And it's like, that's just not feasible. But there's another, I mean, that brings up an excellent point as to why having conversations with people like myself to promote that, to really find out what we can do. And just from my trying to stay a step ahead of it, of course, it's developing and changing every day. So this conversation, if we'd had it last week, would be different from the conversation we have next week if we were just talking about the technology. It's more the implementation and the what do you want it to do. And there's not a one size, there's not going to ever be a panacea technical product that does every single thing, like a self-driving car, you get in and tell you where you want to go and go. So it's not going to happen with a law firm. There's always going to be humans in the loop and multiple products that you'll have to weave together. And as far as like marrying one of them and getting all immersed in it and then it possibly going away, which I think is one of the concerns you were kind of alluding to, is yes, there's going to be a lot of buying, just like always in technology. The first to market might not always be the one that turns out, like Temu versus the DVR or whatever. Like that's always been an example in technology. The first one to market just completely fizzled out, and then the second one became embedded in every single TV set in the US. So it's going to be like that. Some are going to come up as front runners, either by adoption or marketing. And then the other ones will kind of get swallowed into those as time goes on. So again, it's change, and change is never going to stop.
Yeah, and I think it's just gotten faster. I don't know about you.
It does seem like drinking from a fire hose. And, as myself a small business, I am sort of the microcosm of my clients as well. And I do find myself like, okay, wait, drinking from a fire hose. I got to put a pin in it. I got to go back to my network of people who I know are doing this and have tried stuff. And like their full-time job is trying stuff and getting the advice on where to go next. And then again, like boiling down and coming back to my clients with like one or two products.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about not being overwhelmed and maybe one product and sort of experiment, try it out, adapt, adjust. Because like I know having moved over case management software after like 14 years or something, like we're sort of like at the brim right now of like we don't want to change anymore, but being on that ABA Tech Show board and getting to know all these great vendors through other legal tech things I do, I'm all like, ooh, that sounds like a good program. That's a good program, and I've had a lot of them on the podcast too, I'm like, but I'm like, I gotta slow down because we have to absorb it, make sure it's working, using it fully. Because I mean, you can you can not let people take your money, but if you're not really using it, it's not beneficial to your firm. So anyway, you mentioned some other great themes, like I think vision, mission for your firm, to everything to like business development and exit strategy, and I think you also do help out with some partnership track. What are what are some of the areas that you think law firm owners need the most help in sort of building that, as the success partner, and guiding them through with their firms?
Oh yeah, so absolutely. It's kind of it's hard to explain. People ask me like, "What do you specialize in?" And it's sort of like I specialize in the everything, the holistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, people usually come to me with a couple of pain points. Usually, they think sales and marketing is not working, or they're having trouble with client retention or employee retention. And we peek open the hood, series of in-depth conversations, and we find out, well, some things are working that they think are not working, and some things are not working that they think are working. And then holistically, like after you've unpacked everything, we devise a plan. And part of it is triage, what do we need to do now? And then what do we need to do 6 months from now? And what do we need to do a year from now? And a lot of small business owners, small firms, or small businesses, they don't really think about what's the end, what's the end in mind. And if you want to work until you're 80, perfect, that's not unheard of in the legal profession. If you want to sell your firm or sell your partnership in your firm or something at whatever, 60, probably the ripe young age of 60, then planning for that as well, and everything in between. And so just asking some of those tough questions and to finding out like what it is that people truly want versus what they saw in the brochure or what they saw their grandfather do or their grandparents do or their dad or whatever in the profession, and seeing to make their own track, their own way. And we've seen a lot of changes in the last decade or so. There have been a lot of coffee shop entrepreneur style law firms. My law firm was like that. We were very blue jean wearing and meeting out and about or on job sites. I did a lot of construction law, so I was on job sites with steel toe boots and driving a truck and that kind of thing. So that was certainly not a law firm of the past. So using that innovation. And again, like what do they want? And 100%, if they want a traditional law firm and real estate and physical books on the wall, which I'm not sure you can even get anymore, then we can design that if that's what's going to make them truly happy.
I think that's a really good point about, you said a lot of really cool things. Like, I think we do see a lot of lawyers do stay in the profession and work longer than non-lawyers. I've when I was writing my book, I realized it was like 1 in 6 lawyers are over 60 or 65. We're going to have, they usually stay in longer, but we also have that baby boom, retirement just sort of like looming if they're not already like, and then, I think what's happening is we're in a space where people can be virtual 100% if they want. I don't even know where you would go get books. I mean, when I moved from my office building to this location 2 years ago, I ended up having to like pay people to take big bulky furniture away because it was just so big and bulky and we didn't need it and we had to scan and shred everything. But anyway, that's another story. But I do agree with you about the whole like the end in mind. And when I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses program, they talked about that like at the very first day. Like, where do you want to go? And I think that's one thing that business-minded people do. And that's why, part of this podcast, my books, everything is like, we need to think more like business owners and be business owners and lean into that. So what are some of the things if you were to guiding, the law firm owner to building out their exit strategy, like how much time or what should they be thinking about? Because I find that most people are always thinking about it with very little time to get organized and to do everything they want to do. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hear of people. I'm also pretty active in the exit planning community itself. It's, people who represent people in exit planning. And very short window. They usually come in, they say, okay, I need to sell the company. And the professionals are like, okay, well, we need like 3 years because we have to value it and we have to look for buyers. And that's a regular company. Law firm with that deeply trenched trust factor, and branding and things like that, I would say even longer. So I'm finding clients now who are nowhere ready to retire, but coming to me, they're like, I'd say at least 10 years out. And they're saying, hey, let's build a firm so that I do have a choice to retire or phase out or go part time, from what is currently now like my solo or my solo plus associate style firm. And or at a later date, possibly merging, possibly selling, depending upon what the regulations are looking like at that point in time. There's been that shift, or sort of a gradual shift to being able to sell a firm, on the open market. But the majority of people do try to recruit laterals and bring them up into partnership or merge with another firm as far as exit strategy. And of course, there's still those few that just want to wind it down. So I talk to them. It hurts my heart a little bit when someone's like, "Oh, I'm just going to wind it down and buy some real estate or something." And I'm like, "Hey, you know what? That's you do you. Everything's fine with that." But as an entrepreneur, it hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I feel you on that one too, because it's collectively, like, if you have the time and you have the energy and probably the guidance, as well. So sort of it takes a village there. You could get, more than it'll be greater than the sum of its parts, because otherwise you're just selling it for pieces, like the phone here, the list here, maybe the furniture there. And, it would be great if you could get more for all the hard work you've put into it. And, I've talked to a lot of people. I had a really big focus on this while I was writing the chapter in my book, and I helped do like 3 like webinars, or what do you call it? What do you call them? Masterminds with the ABA law practice division on the lawyer and manager group committee, I guess. And so we had a lot of discussions. And what I realized is, like, a lot of people have tried what you're saying. Like, they try to bring in someone, and they groom them, and they're like, whatever. And then something happens, or like I've had a friend, and he was like, I even was like, here, just come work here for a year, and then you can take over, and like, it just, it also depends on the terms, and people have to really want to do it and everything. So, like, going along those lines, like, what do you think? 10 years, that's awesome. And I applaud those people. I think I hear a lot of stories about people are like, 2 or 3 years, and like, they think they can whip the firm into shape. But I think the people who are sort of thinking like that, they're like getting a little farther along in their careers and their lives, and don't have the same energy level. And so it's a little bit harder. And also change is a little bit harder to adapt to. And so, it's a little harder for them to take some of the advice or do the things are happening right now. And I can imagine what they're going through with all the AI changes. They're probably like, I don't want to deal with that. Here's the keys. I'm gone. Just
True. There have been a lot of cliffs, if you will, and technology has really brought that along. Even before the pandemic, I was talking about like Tomorrow's Lawyers, the book by Richard Susskind, who was like predicting like what the legal industry was going to look like as the new generations were coming in, as like millennials were coming into partnership. And then we had like COVID, which was a big retirement shelf for some more mature attorneys who didn't want to adapt. And then we had e-service, which was another one that came out. I've talked to some more mature attorneys, and they're like, nope, not going to deal with that. I'm not going to make those e-filing even was a shelf, and even email, and doing a lot of stuff on our own that used to be doing at paralegals and legal assistants. And when that work shifted, that work dynamic shifted, and a lot of big firms were trying to streamline. So you saw a big thing of retirement there. And the statistics I'm hearing from like the exit planning association says that there will be within the next 5 years, 52% of America's businesses are going to change hands. So I can't pull that statistic out, but it stuck in my mind when I heard somebody say it the other day. And a lot of that is because the boomers are going to kind of finally shift the reins either to family members, sell in the open market, wind down, whatever it is that they're going to do is going to happen in the next 5 years. I think a little bit of that has to do with the administration too, the political climate as well. They don't want to go through the uncertainty of another election, which makes sense. So all these things become catalysts, and so I guess I'm happy to talk to those folks that are looking 3 to 5 years out to see what they want to do with their practices.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by administrative, marketing, or other legal tasks? Well, you're not alone. Many lawyers are in the same boat. They're trying to build up their firm and they're trying to figure out how to get help to do so. So that's where Staffy comes in. So over 90 law firm owners, just like you, have turned to Staffy for help with their legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work. Staffy's mission is to help lawyers find balance while growing their firm with bilingual virtual staff and full HR support. And they take the hassle out of the team management and focus on what matters most, your clients and your practice. I've personally benefited from multiple staff support with about 8 virtual assistants over the last few years with my 2 businesses, including my law firm, Powered Law Group. Now schedule a free consultation with Staffy. It's stafi.cc, and you can use the code RUBY, that's REBY, for a $500 off coupon. I think you said 50%?
Yeah. I was a little bit set back by that as well, but given the demographic, the very large demographic, and then the uncertainty of not wanting to go through another administration change, maybe the interest rates, also private equity, they were taking into consideration. I can't remember, they call it like dusting or something like that, where that's the amount of private equity money that's rolling around. So they were basing it on that prediction as well, about how many more PE firms were going to be buying up. Not strictly law practices, but because that's not there yet, but companies in general.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. I mean, I'd already thought about some of the premature retirements or some of those cliffs you're talking about, and the change in administration, and just AI. I think a lot of these big moments, we're sort of seeing these huge inflections and things like that. Well, so what do you think someone should be doing to prepare for either building a partnership? Well, okay, let's just talk quick about partnership track. What are some of the things someone should be thinking about in building one up? And how much time do you think it really takes to build it up, to make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of 2 questions. It's like the strategy behind it, and then, of course, the people that you're going to be working with. So having an idea of a strategy and having it kind of a living document as you're starting to work through the process, and then finding out the personality traits, the characteristic traits of the people that you want to either lateral in or bring up, depending on where you are and what your time frame is. Recruiting people out of school, it's still a possible thing. And so it's going to depend on your strategy. It's going to depend on your practice areas, how much client-facing interaction people have. It's going to be your personality. It's going to be their personality. So some sort of premarital counseling for the people who come in to make sure you're on the same page. If you already have somebody, I often get approached by the second in command or the heir apparent of a law firm and say it's the Smith law firm and they're Mr. and Ms. Jones. So they're like, when am I getting my name on the door? When am I going to be laddered up? And sometimes the ship sailed. They start to see the writing on the wall. It's okay, this isn't ever going to happen. I'm going to have to go make my own firm, even though they've dedicated most of their career to this particular firm. But there's just no structure ever going to get into place. Sometimes I get an opening and I can get in there and have a conversation and we can kind of mediate, if you will, to see if there's a path there for said would-be partner, or if there's not. But yeah, having those hard conversations once you kind of see what the vision is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of questions, my questions, but, you know, because it's like, first of all, you have to be mentally ready for it. Like, are you willing to have a partner? And then you have to get the firm ready. And then you have to sort of like attract potential partners, and then you have to put them on a roadmap of like what it's going to look like, and you need to have it somewhere at the end of the yellow tunnel, you know, the yellow road, that is going to be something they really want, you know, and so you have to, and then you still need to be a good person that they want to work with, and there's just like there's a lot of different aspects, and maybe just because one doesn't work out doesn't mean it won't work out for another one, and you could, you know, build it up to having multiple partners as well. But yeah, exactly what you said. I've seen that a lot with those I've consulted with, or, you know, just colleagues and friends, where, you know, they might have been promised something and then it didn't happen. And I honestly think this is really where law firm owners sort of like miss the mark from being able to be more sustainable, is because they can't, when they can't make their firm organized and attractive enough, and institutionalize the partnership track that'll give them a lot more freedom to focus on what they're better at, and to give them more of like a long-term payout, I guess, if you will, as well. And sort of then they can be in as long as the, you know, their agreement is, and it gives them a lot more flexibility depending on their life circumstances and plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's not a wrong way, and I've had firms bring me in just specifically to develop like a partnership track. They're like, okay, we've gotten to a critical mass, and people need to know. People need to know that you know, it's not that we're not being transparent. It's just that we don't have anything, and so getting that to where it's more systematized, more able to, people can know what metrics they need to meet or what type of qualifications they're looking for, whether there are options for not being on partnership track but still being a valuable member of the firm. Being a senior counsel is very popular now. I've seen that a lot more in recent years. People just coming in and saying, "Hey, I don't want to be partnership track. I want to work hard and do my job, and don't worry about me ever having, you know, equity, taking on the liabilities as well as the benefits of partnership." So it's definitely not one size fits all.
Yeah, I think that's really important to note, because that gives you a lot more flexibility. Just like when I think about staff, like there's contractors and part-time, there's hybrid, and there's remote, you know, and when you start realizing there's so many different ways to make it work, then it gives you a lot more peace and just sort of faith that it's going to work out eventually if you put your mind to it, and you and you have a strategy. You don't. Well, I think this is a really hot topic. I'm glad to know that you're in this space as well, and can be a resource, because I don't think there's enough coaches, consultants, advisors in this space that can really help law firm owners through this you know, this important step of in their journey, and making sure that they maximize you know, all the value that they've put into their career and their business. So right before we go into more, we're going to pause for a quick advertisement from a sponsor. So it helps us stay in business and have this great, wonderful programming that we have here today. Are you feeling overwhelmed by administrative, marketing, or other legal tasks? Well, you're not alone. Many lawyers are in the same boat. They're trying to build up their firm, and they're trying to figure out how to get help to do so. So that's where Staffy comes in. So over 90 law firm owners just like you have turned to Staffy for help with their legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work. Staffy's mission is to help lawyers find balance while growing their firm with bilingual virtual staff and full HR support. And they take the hassle out of the team management and focus on what matters most, your clients and your practice. I've personally benefited from multiple staff support with about 8 virtual assistants over the last few years with my 2 businesses, including my law firm, Powered Law Group. Now schedule a free consultation with Staffy. It's stafi.cc, and you can use the code RUBY, that's RUBY, for $500 off coupon. Well, Daya, I don't often say this, but I definitely feel like I need to have you back again, but we still have more. We still have a lot more to talk about. So Okay, so I would say, okay, well, before we go to these other fun questions I'm going to ask you, if someone is like only has 2 or 3 years to prepare, or not a lot of time, what are some of the first things for exit strategy with their firm? What are
Yeah.
some of like the low hanging fruit? Yeah, you got to do this. Start thinking about it. Just for like those who are maybe listening and are like, "Oops, I haven't been prepared."
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, we're going to have to assess everything. But some of the key things, of course, financials, process systems, um, if they're going to sell or merge the firm, like who are their key employees, who's going to stay, who's going to go. And some people have had their same paralegal or office administrator for their entire career, so they would never think of working for anybody else. We're going to start kind of rebranding you out. So the founder is going to have to kind of start watering down their brand while the firm is building up their brand. We'll be doing some laddering, so that's making sure that the attorneys that are working in with the clients are in lockstep with clients in the roles that are going to go up in the ranks. I think one of a big thing that all attorneys make, if they're in a big firm, small firm, it doesn't matter, but they don't have enough differentiation or diversity in clients. They have like a lot of business coming from one client, and if something ever happens with that client, it can be a serious problem. And I think firms kind of fall into that pitfall as well. Um, yeah, so definitely start looking at those things. What you look like online, your reputation management. I know this is a lot. You're like, what are the key things? And I just gave you like 10. But
Good reminder, and you're right. I've been approached by some people who are like, okay, they're in like 2 or 3 systems, sort of halfway, where they don't have a case management software, but they're wanting to sell sometime soon. And that, I know that's sort of like a very specific question, but I think it might be more common than we think.
oh yeah.
Would you suggest that they get it all in one good system, to make themselves a little bit more, nice and polished for sale? Or, just wait to see whoever wants to buy them, put whatever system. But I mean, that's more work. It's like leaving the work for someone else to do later. I don't know. I don't want to answer the question, but what do you think in a situation like that? Because I sort of see that that's sort of a trend, because people who are wanting to potentially retire have had like a different approach at technology, and so they've maybe not adapted to using some of the programs that are out there.
Yeah, it's going to depend. But like you think about when you go to sell your house, you meet with the realtor and you say, okay, what do I need to fix now, or what are the people going to want to fix themselves? So like painting the exterior of the house, that might be something that the new people are going to want to do versus you spending like $30,000 on it. But there may be something that does need to be done, and it's something you're gonna have to like really piece out and then see, okay, well, would I be willing to take less versus do I want to just put in some money and bring it up to speed and then can sell faster, and with a better offer right out of the gate. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with having multiple systems. So there's still people who rely heavily on Excel or sheets based stuff. We use a lot of stuff in Outlook, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you can document the system, and or the people who have the biggest interface with that system will stay on as key employees.
Yeah, I think that that's a good answer, because there's not really one size fits all. And like your $30,000 bill to paint outside, and what if you painted a color the new buyers don't like, and it's like, you hate that. Like, so it's like, and I think that comes with experience and knowing also that market, knowing like how bad is the tech situation, what should we do to get a little bit better? Yeah. But I have seen that as a trend in some of the people I've been talking to. It's just sort of a little bit all over the place a bit. Okay, so rapid fire questions are, first one, if you were, what's your favorite board game and why?
I mean, I'm gonna have to go with Monopoly. I mean, it is a classic, and I think originally, I guess I liked the horse as my player piece. That's probably the original reason why I loved it. And but I like to build. I come from a real estate construction background, so I think collecting the houses, hotels, and apartments was always fun to me because it mimicked
Yeah.
real life activity.
Yeah, so that's like probably the most common answer, but it's not my favorite game. But I definitely keep an eye out on the people who say that. So the
Yeah.
person that said that Monopoly, and I was like, okay, no, but he has like real estate, and he's like, and I'm like, no, I'll eventually I'll make Monopoly my favorite game. No,
We did have one, as an aside, we did have a game when I was growing up, and probably this was too realistic, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was a shopping mall and it had a little credit card processor machine. And that was a lot of fun. You had to go around and get all the stuff from the different things in the shopping mall. And I was like, maybe for my generation, that was a little bit too bold.
that's really okay. So, what do you think is your superpower?
I think kind of my unflappability. I've done extensive like mediation and conflict training as well. And people can pretty much tell me stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's no wrong answers, no judgment, let's see. Is that something you want to change? And the answer could be no. I mean, it's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, let's look at that. Let's either make it sustainable or put that in just like a completely black budget, off the record conversation. It's totally fine.
Well, that sounds like you're a good, easy person to work with in that respect, or a good person to work with. Um, all right. So, what is a habit that you think contributes to your success?
Oh gosh, similar, sort of the optimism, and then the habit is really today's another day. So we start fresh, we start with a clean slate, and I do like to do journal dumping. Like if it's been a particularly stressful or a challenging day, finishing that out. I don't do it before I go to bed because that might just spur things up. But like in the evening, maybe before dinner, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I think I'm gonna dump that out and do that sort of journaling exercise so that it doesn't go to sleep with me, and it certainly doesn't follow me into the next day.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Good habits. Okay, what's one of your like a favorite book or podcast or resource of some sort that you're like, this is so good, I have to share it?
Oh gosh, we'd be here all day. I think Good to Great is probably one of my favorite ones. I think that's Jim Collins, and that's probably people have probably said that one before. And it's a classic. So the seven highly effective habits. And I love entrepreneurship. I love entrepreneur books of all shapes and sizes. I think I've read every single one. Every time a new one comes out and it cites a bunch of other ones, I'm like, yep, read all those. So, I think I pretty much have that covered.
Yeah, that's what was happening. I was reading all the business books, and then I was like getting upset with the authors because I was like, I mean, they didn't know that, but I was I was like, they said that, but you didn't attribute it to them. Or like I would just be like, I've heard this before, but where? And then I'd go get the book and I'd be like, I hear, and then after, but what I realized though, and I decided not to be upset about it, is that people need to hear things
different ways
and multiple times. And eventually it's like a eureka, even though they might have heard it 10 times. It's just sort of like language. Like if you use the wrong accent or, I when I was trying to learn French, I was like saying it wrong. I'm like, I'm saying it right, but like it wasn't unlocking whatever in the brain. And then when I finally figured it out, then like understood what I was saying. But anyway, so I've decided to not be upset about it anymore. But no, I agree. We should geek out about business books another day. So how can people find you, and also any other closing thoughts on this discussion, and just some parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, well, just thank you for having me. This has been so fun. I'm so glad we've kept in touch over the years, even though we haven't had too much time to meet in person. But definitely we should do that again. I am pretty easy to find. I am all over social media. The Success Partner. Also, my name is pretty unique. So Daya Naef, if you want to find that. So I think I'm on everything. So like X, Threads, LinkedIn, TikTok, while we still have it, and yeah, mainly LinkedIn is where I find my most professional connections. Oh, I have Blue Sky now too. I don't know what to do with that yet, but I have that. I have one called Zing as well, and then there's another one that's just for lawyers, and I can't remember it, but I'm on that too. So,
Well, that's good. Yeah, and I think LinkedIn's like a good standard, and then there's lots of other places. And
yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been great getting to know you better, and I'm sharing a lot of these practical tips, talking, about the importance of thinking about the ends in the beginning, and also having a plan with your partnership track and or the exit strategy, and just just having that positive attitude. And I think you truly do have a lot of that entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is what staying positive, overcoming the odds is really what we need when you're running a business. And a lot of times it conflicts with the lawyer brain. So I think there's few people, a lot of them are the ones listening to this podcast, who can sort of manage those two quasi conflicting concepts. Mm-hmm. So, well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management Podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review, tell someone else about us, and we'd love to get this podcast shared with others to reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for exclusive content, tips, and updates straight to your inbox. And exciting news, our book, The Power Up Your Practice, is out and available on Amazon. It's packed with strategies, 25 chapters, to help you elevate your practice and achieve your goals. So join us next week as we dive into more advice and insight on law practice management. We'll see you next time.